Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is John Elder. I'm a captain with the Isanti County Sheriff's Office. Speaking today will be Chief Deputy Lisa Lovering, spelling L-O-V as in Victor, E-R-I-N-G. Present also is Sheriff Chris Culk, C-A-U-L-K. Names that will be used in the presentation. The lab is going to go by the name is Othram, O-T-H-R-A-M as in Mary. And the other name included will be Barbara Ray, R-A-E, hyphen Venter, V-E-N-T-E-R. Chief Deputy Lovering will conduct a presentation and answer some questions afterwards. This remains an open and ongoing case, so there may be some questions we will be unable to answer. Chief.
Good morning. In August of 2003, unidentifiable skeletal remains were located in the area of Highway 47 and County Road 5 in Bradford Township. The remains were discovered during an excavation project by a landowner. At the time, Midwest Medical Examiner's Office, a forensic anthropologist, and a forensic odontologist examined the remains. It was believed the body was that of a Caucasian male, 20 to 28 years of age, and had been buried from 3 to 28 years. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension obtained a DNA profile as well as the dental records, which were entered into missing person databases. A facial reconstruction was also done. Over several years, our investigators submitted DNA samples of several people who they believed that this was possibly their family member, but we were never able to identify the remains. In 2019, I started the process of using current DNA technology to try to identify the remains. The DNA that the BCA obtained was submitted to a lab twice over 2019 and 2020, but the sample was not producing a viable sample that could be analyzed by the investigative genetic genealogy consultant, Barbara Ray Venter. She is best known for helping solve the Golden State Killer case. We also submitted to another outside lab, but were still unable to produce a viable sample. In 2021, Isanti County Sheriff's Office was directed by Venter to a lab in Texas called Othram. Othram uses a newer technology called forensic grade genome sequencing to build DNA profiles from skeletal remains. This is also the same lab that just identified the remains of missing Stillwater teen Sherry Ann Jarvis, who was found in Texas 41 years ago. In October, Othram was able to extract a viable DNA sample, and Othram built a comprehensive DNA profile, and the DNA profile was sent to the genetic genealogy consultant and Isanti County Sheriff's Office. Within 24 hours, the consultant had a match of a distant relative for the skeletal remains we had. From there, she was able to build out a family tree. In November, the Sheriff's Office received a name of who the genealogy consultant believed was the remains we had. From there, I started searching but could find no information on the name I was given. Based off the family tree, I was able to locate 2 siblings and a phone number. I called and left a voicemail that I was calling about their brother. A short time later, a family member did call me back and confirmed that their brother had been missing since 1970. They were told that the FBI had been looking for him prior to his disappearance due to some involvement with drugs. I later met with the family and obtained DNA samples from the siblings. These samples were submitted to the BCA to compare to the DNA samples originally obtained in the 2003 case from the remains. In December, the BCA sent a report that stated that the genetic results obtained from the human remains are 140 billion times more likely to occur in an individual who is a full biological sibling. The remains were those of a full biological relationship. He was positively identified as Donald Rindahl of Ramsey County. Based off the information from the family, as well as from the scene in 2003, it is believed that Donald was a victim of homicide, but his death has been classified as undetermined. From the timeline of Donald's disappearance and the crime scene, it is believed that he was buried in Isanti County in late 1970 to early 1971 at the age of 22. It is further believed that there may be still people alive today who know what happened to Donald in 1970. We are asking anyone with any information to contact us or Crime Stoppers of Minnesota. The Isanti County Sheriff's Office would like to thank all of our partners in this case who helped us identify Mr. Rindahl. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, Midwest Medical Examiner's Office, Othram, Firebird Forensics, and Barbara Ray Inventor. Oftentimes, law enforcement is the voice for the vulnerable or victims that cannot speak. This was very true in this case. We were able to return a loved one home to the family who did not know his whereabouts for 51 years. The family has requested privacy at this time. And I'll open it up for questions.
Can you give some insight into exactly what the reaction was from those two family members?
There was a disbelief. I think, it was a random phone call that someone was calling about their brother that they hadn't seen in 51 years. So there was a lot of shock and disbelief at first. And I think once I got the DNA match, it set in a little more, but there's a lot of unanswered questions for them. We don't know what happened. We don't know where he was, and we don't know who was involved. So I think there's still, a lot of confusion going on in their family right now.
What was it like for you? You have helped families for decades, but this case stayed with you. Talk to me about what it meant for you personally in that quick amount of time that you got that call back.
I wasn't the original investigator on this case. I helped with it back then, but I've kept it on my desk because always trying to figure out, will we ever figure out who this person is? And then I knew of newer technology that was coming out, so I was hoping it would be a match. And then when I got that phone call, it literally was an email that said, here's the name. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that we had a person of who it was. And then to call the family, I didn't even think they'd call me back because I wasn't sure. I mean, it was a random name. And when they called me back and told me he had been missing, then I was, in disbelief as well. But I was comforted to know that we knew who he was.
What led you to Barbara Ray Venters? Have you been working with her personally, or?
Her name had come up when I had worked with several of the labs before, and all of these labs seem to know each other because they've worked on cases together. And every time I brought up Barbara's name that I was working with her, everybody was very supportive that was a very good choice to be working with her.
Is that family still in Ramsey County area?
They're still in Minnesota, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you speak to what part of Ramsey County he's from and born and raised for anybody that might be how old was
He was last living in New Brighton. He was last in the New Brighton area, but he had left there. He was leaving there. He had told his family he was going to California.
Has the FBI been able to provide any details on the case?
We don't have any information from the FBI. Unfortunately, it was from 1970, and any records that were there, nobody can find any records from that.
And what are your thoughts in terms of Barbara's work for future cases, whether it be Isanti or in other locations? I mean, is this kind of where everything is headed for cold cases and cases that are unsolved?
Well, between her work and the lab of Othram, I believe that's where everybody needs to be going right now. If they have cold cases and they have unidentified remains, they need to be making those phone calls. It's just so they can get closure for the families.
I covered that Stillwater case, and then it was, oh my gosh, 41 years. Now we're talking 50-plus years of these cases. Can you just speak to, again, some of your shock and disbelief of coming to this point after so long?
Right. You know, when we were first, when we had first found his remains and they said 3 to 28 years, you know, of course, we were thinking in 2003, that's a long time, and how will we ever figure this out? And then you go back to 1970, and what we had back then, people weren't reported missing as adults in 1970. So there never was a missing person report filed for Donald. So we, you know, there's just so much disbelief, but again, there's a lot of peace because we know that he's being brought back home to his family, and it's not complete closure for them because there's still a lot of unanswered questions that we have, but at least they know that they can have him back home, and there's some comfort with that.
When you speak of closure, where does your investigation go next? This is a lot of years that
Right.
have passed in a case that drug-related can be very generic, frankly.
Correct.
Where do you start?
And that's exactly it. We don't know. Some of the people who were friends with him at the time have passed away. There's a lot of speculation and rumor that went around his disappearance that family had heard, but nothing was ever substantiated. Like I said, they were told he went to California. We don't know if he even went to California. We have no idea if that's where he went or not. So from here, we're hoping that we can get maybe someone will call us with some information, give us some tips that we can go on. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. We can be hopeful. I mean, we've identified him, so that's one step in the right direction right now.
We'll take 2 more questions.
The photo is a high school photo, just
Correct.
so we can help, you know, tell who he was. What high school did he go to?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one. It was in the metro, I know that. But this was his high school photo, and then he passed away about 4 years after that photo was taken.
To Eric's point, though, is there anything from the siblings or anything you could help us sort of, who was he? Could you describe him? Did you like what did he have a job?
I don't believe he was working at the time. He was living with a roommate. And then, like I said, he was just told that he told family that he was leaving and going to California. That's all that they had been told, so.
And how old was he at that time when they said that?
That would have been in the summer of 1970,
He would have been how old?
22.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
We will send out a post-press conference release that will detail all that the chief has said. If there's any additional questions, my cell number remains the same, and the email, obviously, address I will be available by that. So thank you, everybody, for being here. For those that are local, Isanti County media, if I could see you before you head out, I would appreciate that. Thank you again for being here.